This episode of the only podcast about movies was recorded. You know what? At this point, you know the deal. The studio's not ready yet, and we're doing it in my living room.
I wonder if anyone cares that we recorded a little differently.
I mean, it might sound different. So if it does, we're sorry, and we're working on it. But it should sound pretty good. We sound pretty good.
Your cat is rubbing my leg the wrong way.
Enjoy the show. What is up, Internet? You're finally a daddy. There's going to be a big custody battle over this one. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And good night, stars. Good night, air. Good night, noises. Everywhere. I'm Shahir Dowd.
Okay. And this is
I've practiced that one a lot because that book is a staple at my household.
It sounded wonderful. It sounded like you've been practicing. This is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film this week, Life.
I want to thank you for picking this one because we had a choice.
We did.
We did have a choice.
We
and
did.
I knew, and I haven't been in the studio for a little while.
That is true.
And I knew that you were like going, let's ease him back into this.
I wanted to, I didn't want you to come back after like a 2 or 3 week hiatus and then be punished with Power Rangers. Like I just wanted
Saban's Power Rangers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that the actual title?
It's actually on the title. It's Saban's Power Rangers.
Well, I mean, Saban, to be fair, Saban and Power Rangers, like Mr. Saban or whatever the heck, he took a super chance on that and made millions of dollars. So good on him.
I mean, did you see the Power Rangers movie?
Not yet. No. Friends
Are you a Power Rangers fan?
I was on the tail end of Power Rangers when it when that became the soup du jour for children.
Okay.
I watched the first season, I remember, and being like, this is okay.
Right.
I like the idea of it and I like the cheese of it.
Yeah.
And I respect any property that's been around for like 18 seasons or something.
Yeah.
And actually from a production standpoint, now that I'm producing television, the idea of taking a show from another country, and because you don't see mouths when they're doing all the action, you can redo the entire thing with voiceover and just shooting like 2 or 3 sets. It's actually a neat little loop that I enjoy.
So here's a fun fact. You know, it was shot in New Zealand. A lot of the show was actually shot in New Zealand,
right?
In Auckland.
Yeah.
And there was a period of my life when I was an actor, a very bad actor.
Wait, what?
I was an actor.
What? How has this never come up before?
And I'm because I openly admit I'm a terrible actor. I was just doing it because I was young and I was trying to get into the film industry, and that was like.
Please tell me you have a reel somewhere.
I have headshots. Like I can.
Oh my God! Why have we not used your headshots for anything?
I actually don't know where they are anymore. But
he doesn't know.
At one point, I auditioned for Power Rangers. And I think I was auditioning as the Black Power Ranger.
Okay.
And like I never saw Power Rangers. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what anything about Power Rangers was. And the casting director at some point noted that. She was like, you have no idea what this is. Because I was like doing lines as though like in the complete
like
wrong,
it was Hamlet?
Yeah, I was doing the wrong cadence, you know?
Wow.
Like I didn't know any of the terminology or how you say it.
You can say it's morphin' time real quick for me.
It's morphing time?
Okay, yeah, exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the casting director was like, you don't know what this is, do you? And I was like, I have no idea.
That is 100% amazing. Could you imagine how different life would be right now if you were the Black Ranger?
What was the Black Ranger the token black guy?
Yeah, he was. I mean, that was just dumb because it was the 90s and whatever. But like,
I remember the thing was because I was a little scrawny back then, and like the thing was is if I got the part, I was gonna have like
you were gonna bulk up.
They were gonna put me on a regiment with a trainer or something like that to bulk up and get buff, and I'd have to like learn some martial arts or something like that.
Well, life would have been very different. But speaking of different from Power Rangers, the film we're doing, Life, is that was smooth enough transition, I think, maybe, but
No, it wasn't. It wasn't good.
I'm just so not used to you being here, Sheer. You've been like an absentee brother.
An absentee dad, perhaps?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I was pretty responsible when you left me the keys to the car.
But if you want to see my audition reel for Power Rangers, you'll never get it. But you could email us in and request it at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, do the thing he said he'll never do if you do it.
I think it was a bit of segue. Or hit us up on Twitter at onlymoviepod. Try us on our website, onlymoviepodcast.com. You and I have been on some other podcasts.
Yes, we've been doing the rounds.
I know we've been cheating on the Only Movie podcast for the last couple of weeks. Matt, can you tell us where you've been?
I have been on. Let's see. I've been on Chelsea White, a good friend of ours who was on our Keanu reviews. She has a podcast called Cabernet and A, which is all about Pretty Little Liars. Now, Shahir, I've never watched before this an episode of Pretty Little Liars.
You should audition for it.
I should audition for it and not know anything and just.
Well, that's pretty much what the show is, right? The Cabernet and A.
Well, kind of. So they do specific episodes in the off season for people that have never seen the show. And then they pick a random episode and then they just they start. So I watched season 5 finale, and it was probably the most me episode possible. It was basically like ABC Family or whatever Disney Channel, whatever it's on's version of Saw. Like these girls were like trapped in like a mean fun house.
Oh, okay.
And it was really fun.
Watches the show. I've only ever side glanced the show.
Yeah, no. So I did that with Chelsea White and her friend Kelly Noonan.
Podcast?
You can find that on iTunes everywhere. They are actually a pretty damn big podcast for that following. They
have actors.
They have actors from the show. It's a great time, and I love doing stuff like that, talking about stuff that I don't know. And actually, fun fact,
much like it on this podcast.
No, this is the only podcast I know what I'm talking about. Chelsea came over the other night and we did a trade-off. We did the first episode of Pretty Little Liars just for fun, and then the first episode of Buffy, which is leaving Netflix. By the time you're listening to this, all of Buffy is going to be gone.
I never watched Buffy, but I had an English professor friend at university who regarded Buffy as one of the pinnacles of television ever made.
It 100% is.
He'd written essays about it.
It's essay worthy. The first episode, which it's so funny. You know when you watch something that's dated, like stuff that you've watched and you loved it when you were younger, and then you watch it again maybe 10 years later, and you're like, oh, this feels so bad and so dated. Yeah. Buffy just hit the 20-year mark, and now it's like it's almost gone from dated to carbon dated, where you don't look at it in disgust anymore. You look at it as like this time capsule, and it's so fucking cool. Okay. So I've never had that experience, but like I remember watching it this time being like, wow, like this doesn't bother me at all.
See, I've only seen the movie with Luke Perry, and I can't remember who played Buffy in that movie.
I don't remember either, but it doesn't matter because there's only one Buffy and it's Sarah Michelle Gellar. We're going off topic. What podcast did you go on?
Well, I was on 2 podcasts recently. You can hear me on CJ Johnson's Movie Land podcast, which is an Australian podcast hosted by ABC, Australian Broadcasting Corporation, I believe. And we were talking about Asghar Farhadi's The Salesman.
The Salesman!
CJ Johnson is the reviewer on ABC. He's a fan of the show. He thinks you wear a trucker's cap in every episode.
I should start doing that.
He just pictures you wearing a trucker's cap.
I guess I could see it. Do I really give off a trucker vibe?
I don't know.
Or a hipster sort of like...
He's Australian, so to
it's like a weird American
like
perception.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, okay, I'll wear it. I'll do it.
We're hoping to have CJ on the podcast sometime soon. He was a lot of fun. We also...
CJ, if you buy me a trucker's hat from Australia, I will wear it.
He could send you a Movie Land trucker's hat.
I'll wear it. I'll wear it.
All the time.
All the time when I sleep, especially when I'm on dates too.
We also did like a little bonus round where we went through like our top 10 Australian movies. So if you're an Australian listener and...
what was your top?
My top was Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
That was my favorite. But then we had some like pretty deep cuts, and then CJ schooled me on some movies I should check out. The main one that he mentioned, and actually the next podcast I was on also mentioned, was the Snowtown Murders. They were both kind of like, this is the Australian film to watch, which was directed by Justin Kurzel, who directed your Assassin's Creed movie.
Why is it my Assassin's Creed movie?
Because it sure as hell ain't mine.
It's not mine. It wasn't my turn to watch it.
And then the other podcast I was on was a friend of the show, Ivan Kander's reviews podcast.
Yeah.
And he's doing like a special film school episode every now and again.
Oh, wait, you taught film school?
I did, yeah. If you haven't known this already, I once auditioned for Power Rangers and I taught film school.
You have a sordid past.
Yeah, it goes deep. There's a lot of things I'm not proud of. But we reviewed Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, Bout de Souffle, which was really fun to get back into, and kind of getting into like, why is this film taught at every film school?
Sure.
This is the one, and it was a really interesting conversation. Side note to that, I was lucky at the time when that happened that Criterion had a sale on 50% off all their Blu-rays.
Did you go nuts?
I did. I went nuts. I went crazy, bought a little too much stuff, but follow Criterion on Twitter if you can. They'll let you know when their sales are on. And they really, if you're into film school, that sort of thing, listening to the commentaries on Criterion Blu-rays or DVDs is better than most film school experiences.
Yeah. Wait, so let me ask you this: how many Criterion films are there now? Like, do you know? Because it's been slowly climbing.
Oh, they've got a lot.
Yeah.
I would guesstimate they're close to the 1,000.
Okay,
mark.
good.
But they're really well curated.
All right.
So yeah, check out Reviewed Podcast and Movie Land Podcast. So you can hear my dulcet tones.
And Cabernet and A for all of your Pretty Little Liars needs. It was funny. I was on that and I made a joke because Nolan North, the voice actor, plays one of the fathers on the show. So the second I saw him, I was like, whoa, Nolan North. And the ladies were like, what? Like, you know him? I was like, yeah, he's like seminal in video game and like VO work.
Okay.
He's Nathan Drake. He's Booker DeWitt. He's the ghost when they took Peter Dinklage out of Destiny.
Booker DeWitt and Nathan Drake was the same actor.
It's all like he does like 50% of all the stuff.
Generic raspy white guy.
Yeah, but I mean Nathan Drake's pretty specific. But it was funny. So I made the joke on the podcast, like, yes. So for all of the crossover of the Venn diagrams of like Pretty Little Liars fans and hardcore gamers, like, you know, there you go. This is for you. We got a tweet back from someone who was literally packing to go to PAX.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm packing and I'm listening to. So like, they're like, the Venn diagram exists, and I was like, that was amazing. So
crossover episode.
So side note to your side note. Please tweet at us, write us in whenever something clicks in your brain that we say, or there's some sort of little like factor, like or even coincidence. Every time those things come across our desks, like I'm elated and it puts a smile on my face all day. So yeah, I just think that's super fun, and reach out. Oh, last thing of business, and then we're going to talk about life, Shahir. We're going to talk about life.
I was going to mention some tweets, but go ahead.
Okay. Oh, we can. I was going to say iTunes. Please leave us some reviews there if you like what we're selling for free. Drop off some stars our way, and we would really appreciate it. What tweets do you want to share?
Oh, I just we had a couple of people tweeting in about our Getting Good at Video Games podcast. This was great. We talked a little bit about
which you can see on Twitch. The VOD is still up.
We got a request for International Women's Day. We're going to do the film Carol at some point.
Good.
Jake, we've had a note that The Devils is coming on.
Yes,
an uncut version of The Devils is coming online. So yeah, there's just a bunch of things happening there, and a couple of mentions of people agreeing with you and not me on certain movies, specifically the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Where are my MCU fans at?
Yeah. But moving on to a non-Marvel Cinematic Universe space movie released in March.
I could tie it in though.
No, don't.
Because did you hear the rumor?
Well, actually, there's a direct tie-in, but
Was it Sony?
No.
Oh.
This was written by the Deadpool guys.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, this was written by
Interesting.
This was written by Reet Reese and Paul Wernick, who wrote Deadpool.
Holy shit. Okay.
So it was kind of like Deadpool was like their big studio pitch.
And then they got to do the fun one.
Yeah.
Or not the fun, you know what I mean?
Exactly. You nailed it there in a Freudian slip. They got to do the movie they had to do.
They wanted to do. But to be honest, Deadpool was a
fun film.
And a project of love. Like they fought for that thing for a long ass time.
I'm not sure if they were the original writers when I don't know. I don't know the information.
The other tie-in, the far more nerdy tie-in that people were speculating because it was a Sony picture was, is this a hidden Venom origin story?
Right.
Because the trailers 100% could have done that, and if they and I don't want, like, having seen this film, I wouldn't have wanted that because this is excellent. I really liked this movie.
Okay.
But if they'd done that, how smart would that have been for them to like actually start keeping characters for themselves and doing something interesting, to have this be how Venom came to Earth?
Right. Wasn't it so kind of like the 10 Cloverfield Lane approach to
it? I just think that would be such a again, it would be another example, and there's, you know, more examples of the bad and the good in this, but like of a really respectful way to do a cool comic book property. But again,
I'm going to regret asking this.
Sure.
As soon as I say this, I'm regretting asking this.
All right.
Venom's a symbiote, right?
Yes.
So this is a bacteria.
No, it's not technically a bacteria. It started as a single cell organism. in this movie. But I mean, are we really going to get into the pseudoscience?
No.
I mean, because I can. If you want to talk about the science, Reed Richards has a lot of great papers on the symbiote, especially when Spider Island happened. There was a whole bunch of stuff.
I'm stopping you right there.
Anyway, let's talk about life. Shahir, how are you?
Yeah, no. What's life about?
I mean, what is life?
How's your life?
I don't want to live in this world.
You've had big changes recently. We're on a couch.
I have.
We're thinking about things.
You've been living a bachelor lifestyle.
I'm living my best life right now. I walk around in my pajamas eating cereal. At this point, I'm more cereal than man.
So, just so you know why he's doing this, Shahir's wife and child are away,
are out of town right now,
and you have been living
which
like
is sad, but at the same time, the ability to catch up on sleep, and go to movies not.
100%. I get that. But also, you've told me a little bit about your lifestyle. I've been to the apartment once or twice. You have no food.
Yeah, I have no food in the apartment. I have mainly cereal.
You have the freshest cereal.
I'm bulking up for my Power Rangers role cameo.
I think that ship has sank. But let's talk about let's go into the
tell me what life is about.
I'll tell you what life is about. Get ready for this. Drop it knowledge. A team of scientists aboard the International Space Station discover a rapidly evolving life form that caused extinction on Mars and now threatens the crew and all life on Earth.
Now, there's one subclause in that statement that I think is a little bit speculative.
Oh, that it caused all extinction on Mars?
I think that's highly speculative.
Yeah, I think, well, they mentioned that that's what could have happened in the movie, but that's not exactly like, it didn't come with a resume.
No, it was like...
It's like, oh, I see here, okay, started single cell, ooh, rapid growth, oh, your cells are all muscle brain, and cardiovascular.
Yeah.
And I see here you've extinguished an entire planet. Wonderful.
Right, yeah. You've devoured
a planet.
This has a fairly impressive cast for a summer release, especially what you've got Golden Globe nominee Ryan Reynolds in there, Oscar nominee Jake Gyllenhaal, Rebecca Ferguson from Mission Impossible 5,
who's just blowing up all over the damn place these days.
This is the first thing I've seen since.
But she's been in a bunch of like smaller movies. Okay. I could go to her IMDb and we could look it up. But she has been in a lot of stuff, and I know, and I'm happy to because she. I
liked her in Mission Impossible 5.
She was the best part of Mission Impossible.
Oh, I'm glad you admit that now.
What do you mean?
I'm glad you admit that now, because the Mission Impossible 5 is not a good movie, in my opinion.
I mean, I liked it fine, but I knew what I was getting into. She was in Girl on a Train.
Okay.
She was in Florence Foster Jenkins. She's been in a couple. I mean, granted, not like crazy starring roles, but I just like seeing her around.
I'm curious that Jake Gyllenhaal was in this.
Yeah, that was such a weird call.
Yeah, because he's I think he's kind of on that Oscar train.
Yeah.
He's on that I'm gonna do the big meaty
right
leading man roles kind of thing. And I think it's been happening ever since Nightcrawler.
But this was a
Southpaw, Demolition, Nocturnal Animals.
This was a subdued role for him, playing the dude. He was an astronaut, so they're all astronauts and they're all on the space station,
right?
And he played a dude that had broken the record for how long he'd been in space, and he was kind of going a little. He was getting depressed, or he wasn't depressed. I don't know what it was.
Not that played.
It didn't play at all into it.
Yeah.
But he was up in space for like 400 something days.
All right, you spoiler for your review for your impressions of the movie right up front. You've kind of said it already, but hit me with what you thought.
So, first of all, I love sci-fi, as everybody sort of knows, and I love a couple things about this world, because I was trying to think of I'd never seen a movie from this director before.
Daniel Espinosa. He directed a Ryan Reynolds film called Safe House.
Yeah, I didn't see Safe House.
Yeah,
but I heard it was Safe House. Okay,
it was kind of that sort of okay B Denzel Washington kind of movie.
But what I really like is I love great sci-fi, and I love sci-fi sort of set in a slightly future, with believable tech. Like it took place on the International Space Station. Like that's super cool. I thought it had, for the most part, realistic characters in the sense that they were all scientists and very few of them were dummies. And a lot of these movies, and I'm looking at you, Prometheus, and I know it could be the cut, and it might be a better movie that was made, and blah, blah, blah. And those people weren't actually scientists who fucked everything up. They were like miners pretending to be scientists, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But in this film, all the characters' motivations felt entirely real. And when they messed up, with the exception of one thing I'll talk about when we go through the movie, it felt very real, and it felt very human mess ups, not like I'm all of a sudden an idiot even though I hold 5 PhDs. Right. And that's something in sci-fi I really respect. I thought the score and the sound design were nuts. I thought they were really, really fun.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
That's fine. I really, really, or maybe the speakers in my theater were wonderful, but I really liked it.
Imagine
I thought
if our reviews were theater speakers.
oh my God.
You know?
So
the Times Square 42nd Street lift rear speaker is really on point.
It's really on point. The thing I will say I kind of didn't like about it was there's two little twist moments, which we'll get to. And I felt like, I don't know if it was the editing or something, but they were handled very poorly.
Okay.
And
we'll have to get into that in detail.
And then, I don't know. I couldn't tell also, and I don't know if it matters, if the movie was really smart or the writing was just really good to trick me into thinking the movie was smart.
Okay.
Like as far as science lingo and what they were talking about, like that sort of stuff. Dialogue was a bit clunky. And I respect, this is the last thing I'll say about it before we get into it. I respect a surprising death order.
Okay. So you're a fan of the Janet Leigh from Psycho kind of big headline star. This is a spoiler for the movie.
Yeah, spoilers now, I guess.
Yeah, spoiler for the movie, but the big headline star gets killed off early. Like the other one, the one that you might know more familiarly is Steven Seagal in Executive Decision.
Yes, the big headlining star, Steven Seagal.
He was on,
I know.
He was on the poster with Kurt Russell, and he dies within the first 10 minutes.
Know.
But you know, the famous one is Janet Leigh in Psycho, dying within the first half hour.
Amazing.
I kind of.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think of it?
I expected that to happen because I don't know. I just kind of felt like the reason Ryan Reynolds was in this movie, and I didn't like him in this movie. I thought his character was a cliche and uninteresting. And
he was the least interesting, which is why.
And uninspired and very much like, so he's called the ugly American at some point, and he's pretty much playing his Hal Jordan, his Deadpool kind of snarky American guy.
He's playing himself.
He's playing himself in this like sort of sci-fi movie about PhDs, and he's kind of like, hey, I'm going to go burn it, kill it with fire kind of guy. Yeah. And, you know, that's what his character's supposed to do. I just thought that was kind of dumb, and I wasn't that interested in it. And so I liked it when they killed him off pretty early, especially given that he's a big headline star for the movie. He's the reason, you know, he's on the poster. People will be like, hey, it's a Ryan Reynolds, Jake Gyllenhaal team up. I'm going to go see that.
Also, I respect entirely, again, I know we're sort of getting into spoilers before spoilers, but I respect the fact that they didn't do some reanimator bullshit that like brought him back with the
only
alien.
Nerds
and
would
like
know that reference.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just sort of like, I'm glad that the thing didn't start puppeteering his body.
Right.
And I really, really appreciate that.
I would have loved that sort of if the movie turned into Weekend at Bernie's or between Weekend at Bernie's or Men in Black, you know, where Ryan Reynolds was like, here, sugar, water.
Yeah. No, I appreciated that.
So here's the thing. I think this movie is very expected. It runs on a train that you would expect it to go on. It does exactly what you think it does. Even its big twists are very expected. You kind of know what they're going to do. It has this sort of like, at what point is this going to go wrong?
Yes.
You know, like there's this sort of, you know what you're getting into this. And I would have, and I know that we do this thing, which I'm like, let's not review the film we wanted to see, but review the film that we actually saw. But I would have liked it if the big bad in this film didn't look so much like big bads we've seen before in other movies.
I thought it looked pretty unique.
Towards the end, it kind of became the alien. And what I liked about the
I disagree with that.
What I liked about it at the beginning of the film is that it was bacteria, or it was like an amoeba. It was a single cell organism. And I was like, oh, that's going to be interesting. You know, like kind of like in War of the Worlds where a bacteria destroyed the aliens. Like I was kind of like,
you're just talking about that it became a monster, not its specific look, that it was just a physical form monster.
It took a physical form as opposed, you know, and it started as a single cell sort of amoeba or bacteria or whatever.
It would have been a hard sell to make this thing not like an actual visible thing.
Yeah, I would have been, but I think I was
like, how would you do that correctly? Like, I don't even know.
But the thing you were talking about earlier, which is that you enjoy films where people with PhDs are, you know, like acting smart. I think I would have been interested to see people with PhDs responding to something that we physically can't see, but has some, you know, like affects us in some way. Well, you know, again, that's talking about the movie I wanted to see, not the movie I saw. That said, and a lot of the reviews for this film really kind of
they're lukewarm, right?
Lukewarm. I guess I'm not sure if I could entirely agree with this. Say that this is pretty much a crossover between Alien and Gravity.
Only because they take place in space and there's an alien.
Yeah, but when I say the film was expected, if you've seen either of those two films, you kind of know what this film is going to be. That said, with all of that said, I did enjoy it.
Mhm.
I thought it was very, very well put together. I think the writing was really on point for what they were trying to do. And I appreciated an original, even if you think that the title, even if you think it's slightly derivative of those two other movies,
Mhm.
I appreciate an original property doing a story that is not franchise designed.
Yeah, it's high-end space sci-fi horror. And that's the other thing, too. It felt a lot more like a horror movie than I was expecting it to.
Right.
In the sense of there was times where I was like, holy, like,
Yeah.
I looked at it and I felt like the movie fear. You know what I mean? I was like, whoa.
And I think they did a smart thing by like giving the big bad a name,
Calvin.
and then it kind of even just
good.
as simple as giving it a name kind of like made it somewhat more terrifying because they were kind of like always asking about Calvin. And you just kind of were like you had like a name to kind of attach it to. So I will say, apart from the annoying factor that again in my movie theater, someone brought. I presume like an 8-year-old little girl to this movie. He started shrieking when the horror started happening. Why would you do that? But on the other side of it, in a weird way, it actually heightened the tension for me.
That's hilarious.
So maybe bringing an 8-year-old girl to every movie, every horror movie is kind of like,
why not?
Just bring one in and put them in the corner and like see if they scream.
I think that's perfect.
I did enjoy it. I thought it was tight, well contained. Really kind of set out to do what it was going to do, handsomely made and well executed, and so it's kind of, for me, it's a really good B+ kind of movie.
Okay.
Like a really, it's worth seeing in the theater. It's kind of what, like I don't feel bad for paying $15 for the movie, which is what I paid ridiculously. I also bought a $5 packet of M&Ms.
Why did you do that?
I don't know. I was in a
Go
rush,
to the bodega.
and I'd just been to the gym, and I was like, I wanted like a little bit of sugar.
You wanted to completely cancel out all the work you did at the gym?
Yeah, exactly.
For $5?
This is why I'm not getting Power Rangers money.
I didn't want to say it. You said it. You said that. Anyway, it's interesting because Katie, my friend Katie, who I went to go see this movie with, one, she never watched the trailers. So she had no idea sort of what was going to happen, which I always enjoy.
Which is good because I don't watch the trailers.
And then two, she's like, this was a really great movie, but it's not one I'll like think about a ton.
Yeah.
And I think that falls into your sort of B+.
Yeah, it's
thing.
a B.
But as I've said before, I think there's space for all of these ranks, and this is a nice one.
So we're gonna.
Yeah. What are your gripes?
My specific gripe here is that I really, and I this is a broader question. So this is the second film with Hiroki Sanada. No, I did that wrong. Hiroki Sanada.
Sure.
Who's just a total badass. Last time I saw him was in Sunshine. You would have seen him in the Wolverine movie, which I haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
I really think with all this star power in the movie, he should have been the main. He should have been the lead.
Sure.
The movie would have made complete. So my biggest gripe with this movie has to do with the metaphor in the title, life.
Sure.
And there's a point at which where one of the characters says, "This is like Calvin doesn't hate us. Calvin is
trying to survive.
Is trying to survive, and that is the basic function of every living organism is to survive. And Calvin's mechanism for surviving is feasting on our organs, apparently.
Well, and also a side note to that, just real quick, every time the only reason Calvin gets violent is due to violence sort of happening to him either accidentally or on purpose to try to do things.
Right.
Even when Calvin eventually attacks a rat by accident, or not by accident, but attacks a rat in the lab, and if you look at it, he like touches the rat real soft, and then the rat bites his little fin, and then he destroys it in a terrifying way.
I think that's an interesting story. Like, I think the broader exploration of this film is this idea that life has no malicious intent. In fact, Rebecca Ferguson at one point says, "I know it's irrational and illogical, but I only feel hate for this object."
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't hate me.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I think Sonata, played his character's name was
Sho, yep.
should have been the main character. And this might be my dad hormones running through me.
Oh, because he just had a kid. His wife
had a kid, and so he is.
There's a scene where they have like the little video thing on a tablet, and they all wave hi to.
Ultimately, though, it's like Jake Gyllenhaal's like being the person who's longest in space. It has no payoff. Like his character is on the precipice. He's thinking about life. He has a reason to live. He has a reason to survive.
Jake Gyllenhaal even said in the beginning he doesn't want to go back. He's like, I don't really have a little monologue about he doesn't really like Earth.
So the metaphor to me, if you think about, if those characters, if essentially,
I agree. You sold me.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal's character was Sho and wanted to get back on Earth, but the dilemma was he can't take this thing back to Earth with him. The metaphor would be so strong, and I was just like, why did they do this? And I obviously for some reason in my brain, if Jake Gyllenhaal had a kid on Earth, it would have been a cliche, but having this sort of side character having, have a kid on Earth didn't feel like a cliche. And then if he'd kind of like emerged,
they use one bit of that later on, and we'll talk about it for Sho's eventual demise. Yeah. The kid is a direct reason why he acts stupid. And it's an emotional response he does to something because he wants to get back to Earth to see his kid.
Right.
So it's a minor, but I like what you're saying. I think
it would have made more sense.
It would have made more sense. It would have made it would have made stakes higher.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think, Gravity, Alfonso Cuarón's film, had a really, as much as Gravity has some problems.
Sure.
It has a really strong through line of why Sandra Bullock wants to get back.
Yes. You ever watch Gravity on a small screen?
No, I've only ever watched it on a big screen.
Never do it.
And I've seen it 3 times on a big screen.
Yeah, you got to do it.
Okay. Side note to Gravity. Here's this interesting thing about Gravity. I think Gravity is fantastic. I do think it's kind of a perfect movie.
Really?
The problem is it's almost one that's like flawed by its own perfection in that it's so tight. I don't need to watch it again. Like I get everything I need to get out of it in one viewing.
Interesting.
Like every time.
But you saw it 3 times.
I did, because every time I saw it, I was like, am I going to get more out of this movie?
And you don't. You got the same thing.
I got the same thing. And the first time I watched it, I thought, wow, that was a great, great movie. But it's not one where I'm like watching it again to get more out of it.
That's an interesting concept, because I watch a lot of movies. I mean, we're sitting on my couch with the Jim Cotta poster hanging right behind it. I watch a lot of movies that, Jim Cotta, yes, I can say is a worse film than Gravity. Yeah. But I will watch Jim Cotta more than Gravity, because it every time I watch it, it does kind of offer me something different, even if it is sort of in that like just talking about it or making fun of it or having fun with it kind of way.
So in my Criterion haul last night.
Oh, Jim Cotta's in your Criterion haul.
Yeah, exactly. They've made a Criterion collection.
I would buy that in a heartbeat.
I think Matt Singer over at Screen Crash is petitioning for a Criterion of Jim Cotta, and he wants to write the line.
Oh, please.
Maybe we should get him in to try and do a Jim Cotta episode.
I would kill a man to do Jim Cotta on this show. So
with the
thrill of gymnastics mixed with the kill of karate, of course.
I watched The Game again, the David Fincher film, The Game, and every time
not the Triple H documentary.
No, and I wasn't watching a basketball game. So when I was like over here going, I'm gonna go watch The Game, you kind of looked.
Yeah, last night when we were hanging out, we had a bunch of people over here, and she was like, "Well, I got to go home and watch The Game," and we're all like, "You're not what sport ball are you gonna watch?"
Yeah, no, the David Fincher movie, and I get a lot out of that film every time I watch it.
You know what's interesting, and maybe I got to revisit it again. That's a film I watched once and got that feeling you were describing about Gravity too. I was like, I got it.
Yeah. I don't need to see this again.
But maybe there's, I don't know. I wouldn't mind trying that again.
Back to Life. Will I watch this again? I don't know. It's an interesting question, but I think, and then
I would show someone this movie. Like,
it's a fun thing. My question is, we're in the midst right now in a release of Ghost in the Shell, which is being accused very, perhaps rightly so, of whitewashing.
I think this one is whitewashed. I think Ghost in the Shell is whitewashed. I don't think Great Wall is whitewashed, if that makes sense.
No, what are we talking about Great Wall for?
Because everyone's talking about that. There's a lot of whitewashing controversy lately.
Yeah, and also Doctor Strange.
And Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange is like in the middle where I'm not sure. So like I would say Great Wall isn't. Doctor Strange, not sure. Ghost in the Shell, yeah. Like
I don't want to like be accusational towards Life, but I wonder if the fact that, because it just seems so obvious that Sho should be the main character towards the end of the film to me.
It's the same thing in the Godzilla movie, man. They should have made
Cranston?
No, Cranston shouldn't have been the main character for a third of the movie and then have Kick-Ass be it. They should have had I'm blanking on his name, the guy who could talk to Godzilla. The scientist that knew all the answers, but was only on there to do exposition.
Oh, the Ken Watanabe character?
Thank you.
Yeah.
He should have been the main character. You could have cut out 3/4 of the characters in that movie.
Because I can't recall the poster for life, but is Hiroki Sanada on the poster?
No, not even in the international ones, is he?
Because I wonder about that. I feel like it's a question of so when Ridley Scott was making his Egyptian movie some time ago, which had Christian Bale and Joel Edgerton as Egyptians. He famously quoted was saying something along the lines, "Well, I can't have Muhammad so and so as the lead in my movie. I would never sell it anywhere." And he said it out loud.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's the case with this. I think that I'm reaching, but it just seems so painfully obvious to me that Sho,
I don't even know if he's in the trailer.
Yeah, but he's not. And Sho, to me, should be the main character. He has got such a perfect reason that ties into the metaphor for what this film should be about, that it would make this such a stronger movie.
There's two things about that. Yeah. One, you could. It's interesting because at first I was like, okay, let's take race out of the equation for the first half of this. You said if Jake Gyllenhaal had the dad thing and he was that character, it would have felt sort of trite and sort of well worn.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think of sort of why, and then when you sort of put race back into it, and now they didn't do it, I'm sure, because Jake Gyllenhaal is a bigger name in America than Hiroki
Sanada.
Yeah,
who's great in this movie.
He's wonderful. He's
great in Sunshine as well.
I think that's why this. I'm trying to figure out where it falls in the spectrum.
You know what the thing would have been for me as well is if the film came down to like every film to me has to have an internal dialogue or conflict.
Sure.
That is both action based and philosophically based.
Mm-hmm.
And philosophically, the thing is, you've got one character who desperately wants to go back to Earth. If you had Sho as at the end of the movie, it becomes Rebecca Ferguson and Jake Gyllenhaal.
There's two characters. Their two characters actually, in their own ways, are okay not making it back.
Yeah, and
then you have Sho who desperately wants to.
And the diatribe between the philosophy of this film would make so much more sense if you replaced the Rebecca Ferguson character with Sho, who desperately wants to go back. And then the ending would have been so much stronger.
Yeah. This is my question then. Is it not, would the triteness of the father trying to get back to Earth storyline, would that trite be canceled out by the fact that they had an Asian man doing it and not a white guy? Do you know what I mean? Because it would be, and this sucks that I have to even say this, novel in a movie like this to have him be the main character.
Right.
Would that novelty cancel out the the old hatness of that? Then would it be great?
Say, but I think the reason why it would work in this case is because he's not the headline actor.
Yeah.
And you watch it going, oh,
that's what it is.
Ryan Reynolds and it's Jake Gyllenhaal. It's clearly going to be about these two guys at some point. And then when it's not, I think it would be like, oh, wow, that movie really took a turn. That was interesting. And
I'm surprised more movies haven't jumped on the we can kill our main characters or get rid of them somehow bandwagon after the success of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, I know it's longer. I know it's long form and everything.
Yeah.
But we've proven that things can move on once your headliner is gone.
Right. And I think, I mean, as much as Ridley Scott's quote is very problematic and points to a lot of interesting issues, it does highlight the kind of, if you're, if I'm putting my studio hat on for a second here.
Oh, hello.
Hey, Mr. Studio
Hi,
guy.
Mr. Studio Man. What can you tell me?
Well, you see, I've got a movie here with Tom Cruise, you see?
Okay.
He's going to cost me $20 million, you see?
Okay.
But because even though he's gonna cost me $20 million, he's gonna bring in $100 million because everybody likes Tom Cruise. You see?
Okay, why, Mr. Studio Man? I have a lot of questions.
Okay, you see.
First off, why are you talking like a really stereotypical 1940s gangster based on the ideas of a young man from New Zealand who's never been to America before?
What are you talking about, see?
Okay. Second question. No, that's it, because I understand completely what you're talking about. Let's go make some money.
Okay. And you know, I think even you know, there was some. I remember I'm cutting into my love of Executive Decision, the Kurt Russell Steven Seagal vehicle, where Steven Seagal is ceremoniously killed within the first 10 minutes, and I remember people being upset about that. I think it's one of those things where. In Game of Thrones, I mean, but the reason why it works in Game of Thrones is that trick perfectly aligns with the overarching philosophy of what Game of Thrones is about, which is that the good guys don't necessarily win.
Right.
And I think, and my problem here is that Life, for such a provocative title, you know, like
it could have had more of a tie into its own name.
Yeah, and it could have been more philosophically interesting.
Agreed.
Again, I enjoyed, you know, what it had to offer as maybe a respite from like a big summer, well, you know, we're in winter now, a big actiony blockbuster. Mm-hmm. But I just think it could have been such a stronger film, even given that it was so well made, given that the writing was strong, given that the acting was strong. You know, it was kind of a disappointment that it let itself so fundamentally.
Well, now, no, I agree. But yeah, I think there's always room for improvement, and you know, maybe they'll take what they did. Maybe maybe that's what they wanted. In the studio did say they couldn't do it. You know, you never know all this stuff. I do feel like, and now that you've told me that it's the Deadpool writers,
yeah. And that's why Ryan Reynolds is probably
of course. And it's just interesting that I don't know. I'd be curious. I'd love to hear the behind the doors conversations. Or if it, you know what? Or if it was even discussed.
Maybe, because maybe that's a note that I'm giving as a writer.
Yeah.
And like maybe
it's a solid note.
Like it's something that no one would ever like.
Sony, if you're looking for script doctors, onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
You got it.
We got your back. So let's get into some nuts and bolts just of sort of how this movie goes down.
Okay.
And also the crew has an interesting thing. So Hugh is the sort of like he's crippled. He's English. He's crippled. He is their sort of like lead biologist, I guess that would be. I don't know if that was his actual title, but he's the guy in the room dealing with Calvin when they first get him.
Ryan Reynolds says in the film, 5 people could do my job back down on Earth. There's only one person. That
yeah, so he's very specialized. Yeah. David, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, is the too long in the space station.
He's the medic, though, right? He's the doctor on board.
Rory, who played by Ryan Reynolds, is like the sort of like the cocky pilot.
He's the engineer.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I thought he was the engineer. He's basically, you know, that's why he was fixing the shower.
But he baseball catches a satellite that was carrying so basically they get Calvin, the little cell, from a probe that took soil from Mars and brought it back here. Right. Which then it got me thinking, we've never done that.
It's something. You know, it was funny. I was reading a Vulture or Business Insider article about this morning, where they talked to some scientists who consulted on the film, and they said, no, we would never put it on a space station. We would actually bring it to Earth, and we would do it in a level 4 laboratory or something like that, which is a complete firewalled laboratory on Earth. That's what she said. She said the reason she said that was that if the space shuttle goes down, you can't control where that bacteria lands. Whereas if you have it on Earth, you know exactly where it's going to be, and there's nowhere else it can go.
Yeah, I get it, but that doesn't make me feel good. Anyway, it's a diverse, and then Show. What was Show? Show was communications or
communications. I think he might have been the pilot as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then there was another woman.
The Russian, Olga, played by Olga.
Yeah.
I'm going to butcher that. As my Russian's not as good as my Japanese.
Ekaterina is her name in the thing. You can call her Olga. Don't even try that. I'm sorry.
And I believe
Olga.
She was the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
And then Rebecca Ferguson was the firewall protocol officer.
Yep.
Or some derivation thereof.
Yeah. So they get the sample back. They find that there's a single cell in it. They revive it. They give it glucose, and they give it the right levels of atmosphere depending on what they need.
Yeah.
And they bring it back to life. Basically, they reanimate this cell.
And a good reanimator joke as well. Again, if you're a nerd,
Sure.
there was a joke like that's some real reanimator shit.
Yeah.
Deep cut only if you're a nerd, not if you're a nerd. Now, well, just one thing.
Yeah, sure.
This is that thing where I think the film had a real opportunity to play with this. Is that the idea that Hugh creates an atmosphere for this bacteria to thrive?
Not bacteria, just a cell.
Just a single cell to thrive. Doesn't come back later in the film because it feels like they end up trying to deprive it of oxygen.
But it already got too big.
And I was like, oh, I was really interested in this idea that you can create alternate atmospheres for an organism. And then how does it adapt to other atmospheres?
Right.
And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting if these scientists who were trying to kill this thing started playing around with like the fundamental idea that got it to the point it's at, like
they kind of did when they were trying to deprive it of oxygen, but then like by the time it was big, it could store enough stuff in its body, like it was outside the ship for a while. And
I just like again that their methodology for trying to kill it were very like action movie methodology, burn it with fire.
I think they were just trying to use what they had at the time.
Yeah, I just I wish scientists.
They did. Eventually, they did. It was just when they were in like hectic situations, they didn't. They couldn't get to the knobs to make the atmosphere different. Like Anyway, I've agreed with you up to this point, pretty much.
And that's, I just think what I like about this movie is it made me think about the possibilities.
Sure.
Of it. Yeah.
So then on Earth, they have a contest because they announced that they've discovered life on Mars, and they have a contest in Calvin Coolidge High School or something like that, or whatever.
In Times Square, in an office I think you and I both work at.
Yeah.
I've seen that view many times.
And the little girl names it Calvin because they won like a contest. So that's where we get the name from. No Hobbs, sadly. And then Calvin grows a bunch because of all the stuff they did. And this is the weird part. So an accident causes some damage to Calvin, and it kind of almost kills Calvin.
I think they were. What happened was Calvin went into a hibernative state. They weren't sure why. Like it had just stopped.
But no. So there was something that was done. Something was adjusted.
Yeah.
And it was actually Hugh's fault because he wasn't paying attention enough, and there was that explosion or something.
There was a valve that leaked or something
caused him to go into hibernation. That caused Calvin to go into hibernation. And Hugh, because he was so excited, even though he was super brainy, he had a human error, and he did that. And that was the first thing that sort of struck this whole thing off.
And then he went into full Frankenstein mode afterwards
with a little electro prod.
Yeah, to try and
zapped it back to life.
And zapped it angrily back into life.
Right. And then, at this point, it was a little bit bigger, obviously, and it grabs his hand, and it won't let his hand out of the tube that he's working with.
How did the scene play for you? Just as a teen.
Terrifying. It was terrifying. It crushes his hand.
And when you see his like limp little hand.
Oh my God, that's the worst. And you know what's so funny? Deadpool has a crushed limp hand joke in it. It's like they're literally going back to the well.
They're going back to the well. I did think that the film stretched believability once Calvin started using weapons. And what Calvin did was like grab the little prod and use it to pierce
the glove to get out. Now, I didn't mind that because they'd already set up in the world that Calvin's cells are all muscle and brain at the same time. So as he grew, it was literally like if he's bigger, he has to be smarter. And that's, again, it's pseudoscience. I understand.
Yeah, you think about the evolution of humanity.
But they set that up. And so that's why I'm going to give that a pass. Sure. If it just did it, I'd be like, all right, asshole. But sometimes all it takes is a line.
I know. But it there's a moment where Calvin grabs a prod and cuts a hole in something, and it was like, dude, you were just a single cell. Like,
he's doing good.
Like 20 days ago, you were a single cell.
This is now we're coming up to the part once it's free in the lab that's still locked off. The part that I thought was just stupid. So Ryan Reynolds busts in. No, Ryan Reynolds busts in to save Hugh, who is passed out.
Yeah,
and Calvin's loose in the lab.
So they break protocol immediately, even though they've like set up.
Now I don't even have a problem with Rory, his character, breaking protocol because he's been a kind of loose cannon, like the
ugly American.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I have a problem with, and I forget who pointed it out. Someone did. I think my friend Will Tempfer pointed it out. Shout out to Will. So Ryan Reynolds goes in, and rather than like float in, because it goes door, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh, and then in the back of the room, Calvin sort of whipping around on the wall.
Right.
why not just grab Hugh and pull him out from the other side? Ryan Reynolds goes 180 around Hugh to push him out.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's stupid.
Right.
That was the one move where I'm like, motherfucker, like that's just dumb.
It's also as a protocol issue, and what I like about this film, kind of like Danny Boyle's Sunshine.
Right.
It's, like there's an issue of protocol. And the problem is that protocol is immediately breached once Hugh has been knocked out. And unfortunately for Hugh, he has to become expendable at that point, because for the safety of the crew, for the safety of planet Earth.
Yeah.
And so to actually go in the room is, like the fact that they're all arguing about it seems silly to me, because it seems like they should have all known this was the deal.
Right. And I think they did, but at the same time, Ryan Reynolds' character is being true to whatever that character is.
And to be fair, Jake Gyllenhaal kind of acknowledges that
he's like
later by locking Ryan Reynolds in the room. I'm just saying that, like, you've got an organism in there, you don't know how it reacts to human, like it's breathing in oxygen, it multiplies, it's probably in the air at some point. So it's like, to actually bring Hugh back into the room is kind of foolish.
So Ryan Reynolds gets a plasma cutter and starts trying to blast.
Burn it with fire.
Yeah, burn it with fire. That's it. That was fine. Whatever. It looked a little silly. I didn't mind it. And then it runs out and eventually gets him, and a very gruesome death for Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Now there's a floating plasma cutter which moves and knocks into the heat sink systems. It causes like halo sort of like things to put out the fire,
which creates a vacuum that Calvin can escape about.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Calvin climbed inside of Ryan Reynolds and like gutted him from the inside. And then I was so glad he climbed out.
Yeah.
Because I did not want, again,
the reanimator.
Yeah. just he did it. It was brutal and it was horrible. He kills the rat too in the room, that was one of the scariest CGs I've seen in a while. How it just sort of like devours it in a cellular way.
Yeah. I mean, side note, this movie is actually a very good looking movie.
It's like, very pretty.
It's a very pretty.
The gravity, like the anti-gravity stuff, they're floating all around, seemed like effortless, which was amazing. Like you never question it.
Side note, it was shot by the guy who shot Avengers.
You're damn right it was.
And I think a better looking movie, Godzilla. He shot Atonement.
You think Godzilla is a better looking movie than Avengers?
1,000%.
All right,
Godzilla is a beautiful looking movie.
Let's put a pin in that, because we could fill another hour with that conversation.
100%.
Disagree.
Godzilla. Just go watch the trailer for Godzilla again and look how beautiful that movie is.
Hey, go watch the trailer for Suicide Squad again and then tell me how awesome that looked.
Suicide Squad does not look.
I'm not talking about visually. I'm talking about just as a movie.
No.
Regardless.
But Seamus McGarvey is the DP, and
that's great.
Looked great.
So then a whole bunch of stuff starts happening as these people start dying. They try to radio Earth. That doesn't work because they're like, oh, the communications are down. We have to go outside the ship and check if the coolant is working.
Because as we've learned now, what Calvin gravitates towards is coolant fluid.
Well, he gravitates towards anything that's rich in, I forget what it was, but
nutrients?
The coolant was. Yeah. Let's go nutrients. Yumminess.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. They're in the cold depths of space, right?
Mm-hmm.
You really need coolant for your. I don't know how space stations work, but you'd think that the cold vacuum of space would be enough to cool down.
I don't know. I don't know enough about how coolant works.
Anyway, I thought that was kind of silly. So the captain decides.
By that theory, in Antarctica, you wouldn't need coolant.
Do you not need coolant in Antarctica?
I'm just saying by your logic.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm literally, I work in television.
Remember how we got schooled on gravity on Andrew Schultz's episode? I'm waiting for someone like
come on in. Bring it. Onlymoviepodcast.com. Tell me how coolant is needed on the space station outside, like on the exterior of the space station.
Okay.
Anyway, then the captain goes out, the Russian captain.
Yeah.
Then
and she has a terrifying death, which is that the coolant fluid
in her suit breaks, and she basically drowns to death outside. So Calvin gets out from one of the ports, and they're like, oh, we got to keep Calvin outside.
And in a way, she does the smartest thing.
She holds the door so they can't let her back. Yeah, and then Jake Gyllenhaal's trying to let her back in.
Yeah.
So totally not doing what he did for Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a very opposite day sort of nonsense thing there.
He was like, you know what? You're not the main star of the movie. Yeah. Like Ryan Reynolds can go fuck himself.
Yeah.
But
he just wanted to get the competition out of the way.
Yeah, exactly.
So then she dies, and then they have then there's four of them. There's Hugh, there's Sho, there's
Rebecca
Ferguson's character, who I'm sorry, we keep Miranda,
yeah.
and David.
Yeah.
So, but then Hugh wakes up. And it's at this point, oh no, not yet. So then they realize, how can I get back in the ship? And like, oh, I can get back in the ship. Calvin can climb through the thrusters. So they keep checking them for heat signatures, and they play a game of real expensive whack-a-mole.
Yeah,
and that was like, oh, whatever, fuck it. It was just one more little thing. Finally,
I mean, I've seen some comments about this where they were like, surely they would, like in being so close to the gravitational pull of the Earth, you would not be fucking with your thrusters, for the exact reason.
Because they start to go too far into the Earth's atmosphere, they're going to burn up, so they have to use the rest of their fuel to get themselves back into orbit. Now,
I don't mind this equation though, because like the equation isn't like not pull into the gravitational Earth. It's like we need to kill this thing or be pulled into the gravitational Earth. And they even say at some point, I would rather we let Calvin in than be pulled into Earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he gets in, and then this is a part of the movie where they're all trying to plot and figure out what to do. And they act way too calm that Calvin's just back in the ship.
Yeah, it's that thing because they start wrapping Ryan Reynolds' body up to like give him like a
kind of burial thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, okay.
And again, Ryan Reynolds is an infected body. They should not be anywhere.
They should have left that room shut.
Yeah, they should be nowhere near this thing.
So this is the part I'm trying to remember how it sort of happens, but Calvin's nowhere to be seen for a while. And then all of a sudden, when they're working in a lab doing something, I forget even what they were coming up with a plan or whatever, it turns out that Calvin is now hiding on Hugh's small, like, broken legs.
His legs that has no feeling. So I think this was interesting because like in every space horror movie, it's the character from Aliens that wants the alien to survive.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Hugh kind of like, and so I was again, because this movie moves in expected directions, I was waiting for this one character that like
to like help the alien.
Yeah, it has some,
but he didn't.
I think they play it kind of smartly where you don't know if he didn't realize it or whether he is kind of like acknowledging that.
I'm pretty sure he didn't realize it.
I don't know. There's a moment where he sees Calvin rush past and he says nothing.
Really?
Yeah. Like he sort of like sees him.
I don't know.
Past and he says nothing. And then the next scene.
This is the thing. I got mad at this scene because how would no one see it crawling, especially if he saw it? How would no one see it crawling up his leg? This felt to me like a poor editing choice somewhere along the way.
Right.
That to me, the combination of them being so calm, that this almost like this shook me. Again, the movie was enjoyable enough where it didn't knock me off enough to be like, fuck this. But I was like, come on. I was like, that felt lazy as shit.
Yeah.
Yep, he gets away. Then there's a sort of a bunch of back and forth. Hugh eventually dies there, and then the group gets split up. So Sho is hiding in one of the sleep pods, and Miranda and David are in another part of the ship.
Yeah, and again, I think to me, the choice to make the film really ostensibly land with Miranda and David is the mistake of the movie,
And then Miranda reveals that like all the different firewalls, and like the third and final one is like they don't ever let us come back and they push us out into space.
Yeah, which is it's weird that spaceship it was the Soyuz like crashes into them, but it actually has people on board.
No, it doesn't.
It does, because you see them being like murdered by Calvin when Sho like tries to like get into it. You see these go back. Well, you're not going to go back.
Okay, yeah.
But
I don't remember
when Sho goes in there.
So let's get there. Yeah. So basically, because Sho wants to get home. Sho just had a baby on Earth. His wife literally just Skyped it in.
Yeah.
And so he sees. So Miranda has now told David in another room that the protocol is to send a ship up to push the ship out of orbit and never go back.
Right.
Two characters that are, they don't want it. One of them doesn't really want it, but both of them are going to be okay with that fate. And the one that isn't okay with that fate is locked in another room, not hearing this conversation.
Right.
So he sees a ship coming through, so he gets out to try to get to it because he wants to go back, but not knowing that ship's never going back.
Right.
And that's where I think they used your like dad wanting to get home thing in a minor way. They could have tied it, again, I agree, in a much better, bigger way, making him the main character and making the sacrifice based on him. But that's where they went with it. And again, it was fine. Perfect? No. Fine? Yeah.
But yeah, there were other.
Okay, I didn't remember that.
There were other, and because what happens is there's a hull breach, and there's this whole like gravity is like
a whole bunch of stuff hits the thing's folding in on itself and hits the thing, and it gets pushed in the wrong way.
Shot, you can see Calvin devouring other people that were in the Soyuz.
Okay. Calvin, side note. So at first he started looking, he got a little face eventually.
He did.
And he started looking like a snake.
Yeah.
But after getting home and looking at Zoe, it was the face of Calvin with after the petals, like its little petals like opened up, is distinctly feline.
Okay.
Which I thought was an interesting choice, like a hairless cat.
Okay. I would love to see the cartoon version of life where Calvin is a character and like walks around like cuddling up to your feet and like trying to stay big for food.
Yeah.
Or big for oxygen.
Yeah, big for oxygen. Just let it breathe. This would have been a very different movie had there not been an accident or an electrical prod. Maybe they could have all been friends.
Yeah, Calvin would have been like, hey, this is just a cute little guy.
They named it Calvin.
Yeah.
You're 100% right when you say that, because it whenever you give something terrifying
just a name
like that, like a general basic name, non-threatening in any way, it makes it so scary. And side note, I really liked the
side notes.
I was so many side. Well, you just came back. I have to get all the side notes now. I really liked the design of Calvin. I really liked the actual graphics work of Calvin. Granted, when it moved quick and got squishy, it got a little weird, but overall, especially near the end, it felt like it had a presence.
Yeah, it definitely worked that way. And I think towards the end, when it's like, I liked it when it was translucent.
Yeah.
When it started like gaining shape and took that sort of murky alien color, I was less interested. And like, and when it had a face, I think I was less interested in it. Like, it just sort of became more of a movie monster to me.
I was curious if it got the face because it devoured the rat.
That's interesting.
I didn't know.
That's interesting.
Because it didn't devour anything else entirely. And again, we're debating random fake science that wasn't even explained in the movie.
Alternate science?
Yeah.
No, here's the thing, though, that I wanted to get into is that I think for a bunch of scientists, they didn't, or did they really get into what Calvin was doing? Like, what is the primary nutrient that he is trying to absorb, or he or she?
They were only concerned with oxygen by the end because he was getting the other stuff, glucose or something. He already got it. I don't really quite know.
Yeah, and again, I was like, oh, I wish this movie kind of took its science a little more seriously and took a science-based action approach as opposed to like just a purely action-based approach towards the ending. I
mean, they kind of did near the end. So the last thing they do in the movie is they decide once Show is dead that they sort of
shout out to Show, by the way.
Yeah,
I felt that. Dude.
Yeah,
I really didn't want him to die because again,
of course,
I was like new dad
brain.
Yeah.
So then it's just Miranda and David, and they kind of come to terms with it. They've cut off all heat. They've cut off all oxygen in other parts of the station. Like, it's just they're like, well, we're fucked. And then they have a little speech.
I was waiting for them to like and this is the point where they do the Goodnight Moon.
Yeah,
story.
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh, and my eyes were rolling at this point. I was like, just because I read that story every night.
There was a book that one of them gave Show for the baby being born.
Goodnight Moon is a book because I've read it more than any book I've ever read in my life at this point.
Okay.
And I read it every night, and I'm always like trying to dissect the story. There's a really funny Freakonomics episode where someone tries to write a sequel to Goodnight Moon or prequel to Goodnight Moon.
What's it called? Good Morning Sun?
There's an old lady in Goodnight Moon, and they write a prequel from her point of view.
Oh my God, a gritty reboot.
Yeah, and it's just like Goodnight Moon is this sort of asinine story that like seems to have like multiple meanings to it, and they try to use it as metaphorical in this because they're like, Goodnight Moon, Goodnight air, and then like Jake, light bulb goes off in Jake Gyllenhaal's brain.
Yeah, like they haven't been thinking, like the astronauts haven't been thinking about air the entire time.
And it was like good, and he starts crying when he say Goodnight Nobody. I'm like, I've read this book. It is not gonna, really sit you.
But when you're freezing to death and you're running out of oxygen and you have a crazy Calvin outside sucking out people's insides.
Again, if Show was reading that book for the first time because it's a book that he would be reading his kid,
I got you. So then they decide that they all of a sudden they're like, oh, we can get to the two escape pods. One of us can escape and one of us can go off into space. They argue about it for a while, and they're gonna lure Calvin with oxygen candles, which I didn't even know were a thing.
They looked cool.
Yeah, they looked neat. And they like gave away.
You suck on them.
Yeah, you
like
just sort of breathe.
Yeah.
They're like canned air and Spaceballs.
Yeah.
So President Scroob, David, then takes these candles and tries to lure Calvin to one of the pods, and eventually he does. Miranda gets to the other one. They take off.
I like this sort of like this, the two cans flying into the air with different fates.
Yep.
Problem is that you know by the way that this scene is edited and put together, you know exactly where this is going.
So some of the debris from the space station crumbling hits the pods, and you get
You don't
confused
know which pod
as
is
to which pod is what. One goes off into space, and one goes.
So just so you know, like the idea is one pod is going to go back to Earth,
and one is with Miranda. That's what's supposed to happen.
It's really strange because she understands protocol, and her protocol should be like, I have been exposed to this thing. There's no way I should go back to Earth.
Yep. Yep.
Which is kind of dumb.
They both should have just launched those things out.
Yeah, and the guy who said he never wants to go back to Earth. So you got one person who wants to go back to Earth, one person who doesn't go back to Earth. As soon as I'm saying that out loud, you know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And the movie, I like that the movie has this sort of like,
it's a down ending. Basically, the pod lands and some fishermen lands in some water, and some fishermen go up to it and look in the window, and they see a trapped Jake Gyllenhaal with a whole bunch of alien shit all over him.
Side note: why was Jake Gyllenhaal still alive?
It says to scream.
Yeah, I know, but like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
I know. Well, I guess
it killed Ryan Reynolds within like a heartbeat when it was like 1/5 the size.
Yeah, it was silly. But then they're like, "Oh God, we got to get this guy out," and they show them opening it, and then more boats come, and then end of the movie, and then Spirit in the Sky starts playing.
You know what I really would have wished they would have done as a cool visual at the end of that was that because they had this like beautiful overhead shot where
all the boats are coming.
All the boats are coming. I would have loved to have seen Calvin underwater swimming away.
Yeah.
Like I just would have loved to have seen just a hint, or like in one of those ways where it was like, oh, what did I just see? Like just a hint of, because
maybe this is the beginning of Cloverfield.
Yeah. I mean, and basically the point here is life as we know it is over,
and everyone eventually on Earth dies. I mean, quicker than usual.
Yeah.
And that was basically the movie. And I dug the crap out of it overall.
For all the problems we point out,
it's really fun. It's really fun.
It is well made. It is an effective horror. It has the dumb tropes of all horror movies, but it
does them well. The suspense is on point.
And I guess the thing is that despite characters occasionally doing dumb things, it's not a dumb movie,
right?
Like it has bigger ideas, and it never treats its characters as stock,
right?
Like I think they do spend time with these characters to give them life.
Yes, I appreciate that, and I really like that Calvin wasn't evil, and that they acknowledged that every character acknowledged that Calvin wasn't evil, and then they acknowledged how they know it's illogical, but they still hate the thing,
right?
And I think in this day and age, more acknowledgement of illogical hate might go a long way.
That's an alternative truth. I'm not sure we're ready to accept just yet.
No. But no, I mean, I know we're both sort of tag teaming final thoughts, but I think overall,
is this a time we're agreeing on it? It's a weird one because I'm kind of acknowledging the flaws, but enjoying it nonetheless.
Which is a rarity for you.
Which is a rarity for me.
Which leads me to believe it's a stronger movie than either of us are giving credit for.
But it is, and I'm wondering why that is, because there are other movies where, like Mission Impossible 5, I don't enjoy.
I think it might be because we've talked a lot about the story and the writing and the meaning and everything like that, and all the fun things and some mistakes that they made along the way, where I think we're allowed to do that, and we want to talk about that because everything else, the graphics and the visuals and all that jazz, felt so just good and solid. That like we almost like breezing by it because of course it looked like it was in space, and we can talk about the other stuff. Whereas if it was like, oh my God, like the floating shit was so like if they did that poorly, that would break the entire thing.
But I think what it is that the set pieces in this movie all feel set up by the world. They feel within the world that the movie has established. Whereas like in a Mission Impossible 5, there's this continual escalation into bigger and bigger set pieces that most of the time you're just like, what's the biggest thing we can throw at this?
Yeah.
Whereas even when,
Fast 8 submarine.
Still haven't seen a Fast and the Furious movie.
Oh my God.
But like even when a spaceship starts collapsing in this movie, it's because we understand the reason that's happening.
Sure. Yep.
So I think maybe that's why I'm okay with this movie. And I'm like,
it does a good job setting up its world, and it sticks to its rules.
Yeah, sticks to its rules. And I think that, that's why it's to me it's a solid B+ kind of movie.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I don't think it's dumb, even though it does dumb things on occasion.
Yeah. No.
And so my actual threshold is, for what you would consider fun is actually pretty low. It's just that a lot of movies don't hit that threshold.
I disagree with that statement, but again, we got to agree to disagree on that. You hate fun ostensibly. You hate it,
and you like cheap thrills. But
I do. Yeah. I do. Hey, listeners, the cheaper the better.
The cheaper the thrills, the better. The cheaper, the more thrilling.
That's what really gets me off. It's not the thrill itself, but the fact that it's so cheap.
Yeah, I mean, if the thrill was $1, you'd be like,
oh, come on, let's go 50 cents. Let's go a quarter. Let's just fucking roll with it. Anyway, so this has been the only podcast about the film Life. I think we both agree if you're looking for a good time at the movies to something that's not a franchise and you like some sci-fi action, it's definitely worth your time.
I mean, like as far as sci-fi horror movies go,
it's solid.
Better or worse than Event Horizon?
It's been so long since I've seen Event Horizon. I'd say better.
I'd say, and then alternatively, Sunshine. Better or worse than Sunshine?
I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't know.
So here's the thing for me, is I think Sunshine does a better job of setting up the science of what they're doing, but flubs the third act.
Yeah.
This does a worse job of setting up the science, but does a better third act.
Sure. All right. So I don't know. I don't know.
Better or worse than Aliens? Alien.
I mean, worse. But just because it's Alien is a classic, and I don't. It's so hard when you be like, "Hey, what is it better or worse than the best thing that's ever done this?" And it's like,
I think it's actually more ambitious than Alien.
It's way more ambitious than Alien, and it doesn't. You get a budget for something like this. You can imagine, bigger budgets mean bigger problems, and sort of people try to throw money at the problem rather than fix it on a script level.
Yeah.
Who knows if Alien had a shit ton of money, if it would have been as good.
We're seeing that equation play out right now with Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
I'm not excited for Covenant at all.
I haven't watched the trailer. So
don't, because it literally broke. There's shots in it that I was like, fuck this movie.
Okay.
And everyone's so excited, and it makes me feel bad.
I'm going to go see it because I just rewatched the entire trilogy.
I'm going to go see it because we're going to do it on the show.
Okay. So yes, if you're interested, or if you want to shout us to where you think this film lands in the space horror genre,
give us some rankings.
Give us your rankings. School us on how coolant works.
Yes,
on
a lot of requests, and tell me some cheap thrills I can do for under $1.
Yeah, like 25-cent cheap thrills.
Onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Tell us all these things.
Hit us up on Twitter @onlymoviepod. Please write us in your reviews of the show. We really appreciate those.
Yeah,
I like that
iTunes.
last review, which was. I came here for the crawl, but I stayed for the movie.
yes, I appreciate that.
Did you know that person?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But either way, it works for me.
All right, Matt, it's in song time.
Well, where can people find you before you're starting to be a DJ?
Of course, I'm sorry about that. You can hit me up for my Spotify playlist at www.shahirdaud.com. That's SHAHIRDAUD.com. Where I will serenade you with my favorite 90s hits.
Ooh, good. And you can find me at MatthewKroll.com. That's MATTHEWKROL.com for my life and works. Also, you can find me on Instagram at Skeletor4 PREZ, or Emperor MSK on Twitter. Shahir,
I've never asked you?
What?
What does MSK stand for?
Oh, Emperor. Emperor Matthew S. Kroll. I got the nickname in high school of Emperor. And
because you know about my Power Rangers history. Why are you the Emperor?
People, this is a lot.
Palpatine?
No, maybe. When I was really young on the playground, I used to be the person that controlled all of the games, like the imaginary games where you play on. I was like the puppeteer.
Why is this not surprising?
No, not at all. And so there was one time when I think it was Star Wars, because I didn't want to be Darth Vader. I wanted to be the Emperor because I was controlling the entire thing. So I was the Emperor, and then that just sort of bled through high school, where people just would call me Emp or Emperor in a weird sort of. I don't know. That's how it happened.
I'll give you the backstory of my nickname, which we haven't heard.
What's your nickname?
Through high school, I was called Shark.
I love
it. You can write us in to find out why.
You're not going to tell us?
I'm not going to tell you now. That's a long story.
Okay, well, maybe next time, Shark.
We'll see you next week.
All right, bye, everybody. Welcome back, Shahir.